Hi everybody, welcome to my first ever episode of my what I'm going to call editorial series. Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is going to be PvP. So I know it's a delicate topic for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that find it unfair, impossible, too much of a grind. The number of adjectives as far as PvP are limitless. And so what I'm going to be covering today is basically what my take is on PvP. Where do I think it's great? Where do I think it falls short? What can we ultimately do about it? What can us quote-unquote average to slightly above to slightly below average players do to ultimately make this a better experience for us? So before we get into my narrative here, which is largely going to be one big analogy, I wanted to just take a quick throwback Thursday, if you will, to a time when PvP was much different. So I got this screenshot here. I've kept this for one reason, and this was the very last time that I ever won a PvP tournament. And just looking at this, it almost makes me kind of chuckle. The fact that I could have won anything related to PvP with just 30 successful attacks. I look at that now and I think, man, 30 attacks. I just did 24 attacks last night to keep my streak going. And you think about the numbers involved here in winning one of these little mini tournaments, and 30 attacks just seems impossible. Like, how could you have done anything with only 30 attacks when we see people with hundreds of attacks now? So I thought it was kind of funny how the concept of PvP has changed over the last few months. And for anyone wondering if I'm qualified to talk about PvP, you can consider me qualified or not. I don't really care too much about people's opinions. So to put things into perspective, I have finished in Legend League plenty of times when PvP first started. Since I got more and more not necessarily fed up, but just less interested in PvP, I have scaled that back quite a bit, so I don't grind out to Legend every single time now. Not saying that I couldn't, but it's very possible that even where I'm at right now, I might not even be able to actually get back to Legend with the way the runes have fallen. And actually, that's going to be a big chunk of my narrative coming up here. But essentially, I've seen PvP from the darkest days to almost 2 years ago, when PvP was all of the defense attacks before your offense. And if you think PvP was tough now, you should have played back then, because that was almost impossible going against a team of like Igorok and some other really hard hitters, having all those people attack before you ever even got to attack. So it's definitely come a long way since then. I definitely like PvP. I just don't like to do it, and I don't like the reward system. So one of my favorite parts about this previous version of PvP was the rewards kind of helped everybody. You got rewarded if you put in the time to do a lot of PvP. You'd get a bunch of gems and you'd get a bunch of tokens. Everybody gets a little bit of something. Nobody really gets excessive rewards that's going to make their PvP experience even more powerful like we see now. And so what I'm going to get into is the quote-unquote rich getting richer concept. And this is a notion that I've seen all over the forums. I see it all over Gen Chat. And it's just something that I would like to touch on. Whether you agree with it or not, that's besides the point. Like I said, this is mostly editorial. These are my personal points of views, although I do represent plenty of people that feel the exact same way. So if you think that PvP is great right now, you're certainly entitled to that opinion. I'll be entitled to mine. We can all go about our merry way without any complaints, without any conflict, and just keep on enjoying the game. So my main point here is I want to show you an analogy, because some people can't quite grasp the concept of what it means for the rich getting richer. It's kind of an abstract thought, but with the way that PvP started, there definitely is a rich getting richer scheme to it, and I want to just show you a visual analogy of that so that you can see where I'm coming from when I say that I don't generally care for PvP, or I just choose not to do it. And then maybe you understand a little bit more of why it's getting harder and harder and harder with each passing week to excel at PvP. So let's go ahead and take a look at my analogy then. Okay, so what I have here is pretty obvious. It is a chessboard. So I've made analogies to chess in the past as far as some of my PvP videos. I've also talked about it in Gen Chat. I mentioned many times how when I was at that level 20 or 30 range and I would do PvP and it would take somewhere around the 10 or 15 turns to finish, and it's just kind of back and forth who's going to win type situation. I've always attributed that to basically a chess match. And that's what I really, really loved about low-level PvP, is because essentially this chessboard represents low-level PvP. There are literally hundreds upon hundreds of openings that you could do to basically lead off your attack or your defense. And there's also tons of counters. And ultimately, what it comes down to is who is going to be the better chess player. And this is kind of where my analogy starts then. So, the way that PvP works is at the very, very, very beginning, when we started PvP seasons, we basically had a group of people who said, you know what, let's have one big chess league, and we'll have a bunch of people play each other, and we'll cycle through, and I'll play him, then he'll play that guy, and then maybe I'll play this guy again later down the line. And basically, everybody just starts playing everybody else. We get a feel for where everybody is. There's going to be some really good chess players, there's going to be some average chess players, and there's going to be people who are relatively novice chess players. But in the grand scheme of things, we ultimately find that we start getting a quote unquote ranking, if you will. The better players will ultimately shift towards the top, losing fewer and fewer and fewer games. And the people at the bottom will struggle to win even a few games. They'll win against their own competition, but they won't be able to really hang in there with your Bobby Fischer wannabes. They'll still have a good time doing it, and they'll win a few games here and there. So where this actually starts to get a little bit dicey then, the way that the PvP seasons works, it basically says, depending on how many games you're able to win early on, doesn't matter if you're a great chess player or a mediocre chess player. If you're a mediocre chess player, but we're able to play enough other mediocre chess players, or even some lesser chess players, we're going to reward you for that. And so, what the reward is in this analogy, let's say you can take one of your pieces and you can replace it. So, the most common one for a novice chess player, aside from the queen, is going to say, you know what? I think the rook is the next best piece. So they take one of their ones. We're not going to change our initial setup with the pawn row just yet, but they're going to say, you know what? I think the rook is the next best piece. So they take the rook and they replace, let's say, their knight. Not a bad idea. And another opponent says, you know what? I'm a pretty decent person too. I'm going to replace one of my knights with a bishop. And this all goes in terms of how good you are or think you are at chess. Now, we will see a lot of novice chess players think that the rook is the next best one. And we will see people who are intermediate chess players say, you know what, the rook is a little bit predictable because it only goes vertically and horizontally. It's very easy to see coming. It's very easy to mitigate. So an intermediate chess player might say, you know what, I think bishops are a little bit sneakier because they're diagonal. They're a little bit harder to see coming. And that's actually when you get into the more skilled chess player. Any really good chess player knows that it's all about the knight, because the knight you absolutely cannot see coming, at least directly. So a really good chess player knows that they'll do better with knights. And so you might ultimately see people switching up their teams, and as they go through the seasons they might say, you know what, I become really good at the knights, and be like, you know what, I got really good at the knights too, so much so that I'm willing to give up both of my bishops for a couple extra knights. Now notice we haven't actually changed our front row yet. So looking at this board, I have 3 knights, they have 2 knights, 2 bishops, 2 rooks. It's the exact same setup as it was if you're to the untrained eye. All they did was change the orientation of them. So even if they said, you know what, I am a bishop fanatic and maybe I am a knight fanatic. So based on what they ultimately choose, something like this. So they went 3 bishops and 3 rooks. I went 3 rooks and 3 knights. That's really besides the point. What it's saying is, even with a setup like this, a good chess player is probably going to be able to overcome that a little bit. So even if we, let's reset this for a bit here, and let's do a new analysis. So essentially, when you get that first wave of PvP done, that very first preseason that we did, we had some people that essentially ended up like this. They say, you know what, I'm taking an extra rook. And this person said, I'm taking an extra knight. So a good chess player is going to be able to still overcome that. Even if I didn't win enough games where I'm still stuck with a bishop, let's pretend that I'm black right now. If I'm a good enough chess player, I might still be able to beat this person, even though he has an extra rook. So he did sacrifice his knight for an extra rook, which I did say rooks are fairly predictable. So there's still a chance that if this person is a really good chess player, even with the slight disadvantage of this team here, they might still be able to overcome. Maybe they'll still lose a fair share, but they still have a legitimate chance of doing so. And this is where we actually start getting into the further and further seasons. Now, before we get that, right now, the match is pretty well even. It's like, yes, there's a slight variation of pieces. He's got one extra rook. But let's say that I took one extra knight as well. And this guy's the opening person, so this is technically our PvP defense, if you will, and I am the PvP offense. He goes first, so I'm at the whim of what he does. I decided to go with an extra knight because I consider myself to be a really good chess player. But where the rich get richer scheme comes into play has to do with the currently called Boss 100. Now, what the untrained person doesn't realize when we start talking about the rich getting richer is at the end of this very first season, everybody basically got to pick one extra piece, and that is the equivalent of getting your champion rune that we started with. Now, we might shake this up a little bit and consider that if you got one of the lower level champion runes, that might have been a bishop. If you got a medium one, that might have been a knight, and if you got a high one, it might have been a rook. But what it doesn't tell you is that if you finished really high, you actually were able to choose a queen if you want. So now, it doesn't matter how good of a chess player I am, if you're going against two queens, your back is up against it. No doubt about that. If you've ever gotten to the end game of a chess match where you're dealing with two queens, it's almost always a loss if you can't mitigate it, and your days are numbered. Now, fortunately for us, we still have a number of power pieces ourselves, and the pawns are still blocking the front lines. So if we're really cautious, we can maybe still beat this even though he has two queens. Now, this here is the equivalent of finishing in the highest possible league. We're talking Legend League. You got the best possible rune that you could. And maybe for analysis, I should have used a rook here, considering we'll call it rook the best one. But once you get those people who are really trying to be ultra competitive in PvP, what they didn't realize is that if you got into the Boss 100, not only did you get this possible queen here, but you also got the bonus for the top 100. And what the bonus for top 100 might be is, in general, that rune was even better than the legend one. So we'll just say that this one was an extra rook. But what they didn't anticipate is that extra rune that you got was even better. And on top of that, they're going to let you put this one in your front row. So now you have a queen, which is your superior level rune that only the top 100 get. And so that very next week after the PvP season, that first preseason, you have 100 people that both got that extra rook and they got a queen that they could put in their front row. So now if you're ranked 101 and you want to get into the top 100, guess who you're going against to try and climb that ladder? You're going against people that got the same rune as you did, which was this extra rook, but they also got an extra queen that they could put wherever they want. So now suddenly things look a little bit daunting. So let's say you try as you will and you try as you might. You manage to scrape through just into legend again. You get yourself another rook. But then all the while there's still 100 people out there that still had this loadout to start with. And now even they, because they had extra power, all they had to do is find people that didn't have this, and guess what they get to do? They get another Legend 1 rune, and they get another top 100 rune. So now I'm looking at 4 rooks, but I'm going against 4 rooks and 2 queens. Do you think I'm ever going to be able to win this? It doesn't matter how good of a chess player I am. I'm starting to fall further and further and further behind. And so now I need to start looking for people that are less than me. So I'm cycling through and looking for opponents that I know I can beat with the loadout that I have. And so let's say I keep on fighting week in and week out, keep getting to legend, and I have a ton of rooks. So I'm actually sitting pretty good. And ultimately, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for other people that have, maybe some bishops and some rooks and some knights and stuff. And I'm looking for people like this that I can beat. And maybe somebody even got so far as to say, you know what, I even got another one out here. So you can see that when the boss 100 get 2 runes per, breaking through that threshold into the top 100, if you weren't already there to start with, gets increasingly difficult, more so every single week, because you don't get that superior rune that they got, which basically means that you can go about crafting, but some of those champion rooms, you could not craft anything even close to that. Now, you might be able to ultimately craft another type of a queen, maybe your superior planning runes or your superior tactics runes. You might be able to get a couple of these, but when you're going against 4 or 5 rooks and 3 or 4 queens, it becomes almost impossible to win. And that actually brings us to where we are today with the actual legitimate seasons out there. No longer just pre-seasons. The rewards are still coming. The boss 100 are still getting 2 runes per, and the rest of us are getting 1 mediocre or possibly 1 pretty decent rune. So where does that actually leave us then? Let's reset this board and do a new analysis. What we are up against right now is, let's say, even after grinding my heart out, I did really, really well in PvP. I poured thousands and thousands of gems into extra raid tickets. I managed to get way, way up there, even into Legend League, and I want to break into the top 100. So let's just say where we're at now, some 12, maybe 13 seasons in, I'm not really sure where it is. This is essentially what we're staring down. And bear with me as I load the deck here. But I'm definitely not kidding. This is what it feels like when you get to or are trying to get to Legend League, and even if you get to Legend, trying to get to boss, this is what you're looking at. So I'm looking at the people that have, not even exaggerating, 20 superior runes. All 4 of their heroes, all 5 runes, all superior legendary runes. That's what this amounts to. So these are your Kiras that have all the legendaries. They have higher attack than my Cobalt has. They have the dodge that rivals Arya. They have the tenacity. They have the critical that crits even when they're diseased. I mean, some of these guys are just absolutely impossible to beat. Throw in there also your unkillable baubles that have over 100% damage reduction. And all of a sudden, this is looking pretty daunting. But like I said, I did pretty well in PvP. Let's say I even managed to accumulate some really good stuff. I spent my gems and I crafted a good chunk of, nice superior runes myself. But remember, I'm still on defense. I don't get to go first. Let's say I got about this much. I got, let's just say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 superior runes or 15. I have most of my guys set up with superior runes, and I can handle the PvP for the most part. And basically what we're looking at is, if you have anything like this, or if you put your stuff in just the wrong spot, where does that actually leave us as far as going against this person? Well, this is PvP defense, and anybody who knows chess, basically they're looking at this here and they're saying, boom, and this only goes so far before it starts to get out of control. So this guy has to go here, and now it's kind of balanced out. Go something like that. This person can take out this one, and then where does that actually leave us? Something like that. They can block. We could do something like this, and they could do something like that. We could do something like this. He actually put me in check there. But basically, things get a little bit dicey. And if you're not fortunate enough to have even a close enough version to it, let's just say, for example, that we had something like this. We have all these different ones, but we go so far as to pick the wrong orientation. And even though we have a ton of great runes, we don't pick the best possible team, or we pick the wrong order, or just anything that's going to cause us problems. And so we'll leave it at that. And then basically, you run into instances like this, and I won't put them all in here because we saw what that looked like. But basically, if you loaded up all these with queens, it essentially looks like this. The very first person goes, Kira goes, checkmate. Or, sorry, I have to have one other queen here as well. But if there's a queen here, it's automatic checkmate because he can't do anything. And actually, I don't think he can actually do anything here anyways, because he can't defeat this one. So just like that, just by that first turn, game's over. And I've mentioned the one-shot or one-hit meta many times in PvP. Personally, I think that's kind of cheap, and I don't think it really demonstrates who's really a better player. Do you think it's fair that someone who spent more gems than you makes them a better PvP player than you because they were able to get better runes? Because they're VIP 10, should that mean that they're a better PvP player than you? Does it require any thought when you just have all the best stuff? Doesn't really challenge you at all. So basically, the big question is, where do we go from here? So personally, like I said, I'm okay with doing enough PvP to get by with guild quests, and whenever there's quests for various events, I'll do my PvP and do my part. Like I said, I feel like I could still get close to legend. I don't think I could actually get to legend anymore this far in because I just don't have the champion runes that everyone else has. And plus, I tend to spend my gems on other stuff, mostly in the interest of demonstrating in videos and stuff. But so what I'm suggesting is how do we make this better for everybody? There's always going to be those people that spend more money than you. Not kidding. There are people that spend $100 a month on this game. More power to you. I've sure spent my share of money on this game as well. But when it comes to PvP, we're at the point where we can't just take away people's champion runes. I mean, those people earned those runes whether they spent a ton of gems or not. It doesn't matter how they got there. They got there. They earned those runes. So taking away those runes would be a huge slight against the top players in the game. And I certainly would never suggest taking away rewards that you've actually earned, especially when some of them are so invaluable. What I would like to see is PvP sort of like it was in the previous phase, where you could kind of play casually, or you could play it extensively and get your rewards based on how much you want to participate and put into it, and not see so much of the rewards based to fuel that PvP even further. Because like I said, after the very first preseason, when those top 100 got 2 runes and everybody else got 1 rune, that already set the stage for those people getting better and better and better, and everyone else just ultimately falling by the wayside and not able to ultimately catch them. So if anybody is interested in what my thought is, I think a simple fix moving forward would be something just like setting up leagues based on VIP level. Have one league that is VIP 5 and higher, and the other one VIP 4 and lower, or 6 and higher and 4 and lower, just so that you can whittle out the people that haven't spent money. If you're not in that spending money and you still want to have a competitive PvP environment, doesn't it seem reasonable that you should be able to compete against other like-minded individuals like yourself? I'm not even lying. When I did PvP on my alternate account, which is level 45, I went against, I didn't actually attack them because it was a death sentence, but they were level 40, and every one of their heroes had legendary improved runes, and they had Shade, and they had Kozar, and all sorts of other really, really powerful heroes. And flat out, because they had Shade, they spent money at some point. And like I said, there's nothing wrong about that, but that person is not going to have any type of a competitive environment in PvP. They're going to win almost all of their defenses unless someone can come in with a much higher level. And then there's really just no point in a person who's free to play or very, very low VIP to have to fight somebody that's so stacked like that. And so if the leagues were broken up into something a little bit more beneficial, the people who are paying money to play this game let them duke it out amongst themselves. Give them the best rewards for what that offers, and have them fight amongst each other for the top spots. Some of the other people who are VIP 0 and just enjoy the game a lot, they should have a chance at getting something, I would think. It seems fair that if they're trying their hardest and they're playing and playing and playing, I feel like they should be rewarded for doing really well, especially for spending no money. So I'm not saying that there needs to be a league for every single VIP level, although I do think that would be amongst the most fair. Because if you're VIP 0 and you go against a level 40 that has a bunch of legendary runes, they played extremely smartly and managed to acquire those legitimately without really even spending. Is it possible to get runes like that? Of course it is. If you just pay attention to the heroic summons, there's rune features all the times in the heroic summon. So saying that somebody that's a free to play can't get really great runes is not accurate at all. Some of the people, when they get their good heroes right away, like if you got Valken right away and were able to ascend him, or you get Ponti right away and ascend him, if you save some of your times 10 summons and take those gems and pour them into rune crafting with improved runes, sure, you can get some really nice legendary runes even at level 30 or so. So it's not unheard of to think that somebody that's a mid or low level can get these really elite runes, but they cannot get the elite champion runes that we're seeing, although it is possible for lower levels to get higher in leagues now. But my thought is, the playing field ultimately needs to be leveled in some fashion. Like I said, I don't suggest ever taking rewards away from people, but also people that aren't spending money should not be forced to play against people that have spent tons of money. Or even people that have spent a little bit of money shouldn't be playing against people that are VIP 10, that pretty much have the best of whatever you can buy. Now, obviously, even with such a system, I'm still not going to do any better or worse than what I did, because I am a high VIP level already. So I am already going to be lumped with people that are spending tons of money. So just the fact that I'm suggesting it goes to show that I think it has merit, and that even if it doesn't help me personally, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of players who feel like they have to spend in order to be competitive, when in reality they don't need to, if we could cater the game experience to benefit more than just the top spenders. So I think that's going to be the end of my, I guess you could call it a rant if you like, but like I said, I wanted to get out some visuals to see what it feels like when you're level 70 and you're going against 20 superior runes. Most of the guild quests, I just say, okay, I'm going against this. It's basically a death. I'll take the 3 losses, do it for the guild, and that's about it. So could I ultimately beat 20 superior runes? Maybe if I had 18 to 20 of them myself and you managed to pick the correct team. But like I said, it gets really, 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 really difficult. And I don't know where the line in the sand is going to be as far as the future, when it becomes to the point where the PvP defense just flat out can't lose unless it has... the offense has the exact perfect team with the perfect RNG and the exact perfect runes. I don't know if it'll ever come to that. I'm hoping that my suggestion is given a little bit of thought, and maybe we see some changes that, like I said, will benefit everybody and not just the high-end players. So, if you happen to have stuck it out for the entire video, I definitely thank you for listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you have other suggestions, I would love to hear them. I would love to post them on the forums and get conversations started. I'm not asking for immediate change. I'm just looking for conversations to say, what is it about the average player that they find so frustrating? What is it about the free-to-play person that says, I know I can't be competitive unless I spend money. Why should I be forced to spend money just to try and be competitive? So that's what I'm looking for, is I'm looking for feedback on what you think some of the fixes to PvP could be. And there's plenty of people that think PvP is fine right now, and that's certainly your right to believe so. There's a lot of things that I like about PvP. It's just the reward structure is a little bit off in my opinion. So leave me your comments in terms of what you think, and then we'll take it from there. We can always post on the forum, get in contact with devs and see what they think, and go from there. So as always, thanks for listening. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. If you like this video, please show your continued support by hitting that like button, and be sure to check out both my YouTube channels for new content all the time. And always remember, peace is a lie, there's only passion. We'll see you next time.